And today marks a historic handover in Afghanistan. Afghan armed forces are now responsible for security in the country. A significant milestone in the nearly 12-year war, marking a turning point for American and NATO military forces, which now move to an entirely supporting role. The handover paves the way for coalition forces, currently numbering about 100,000 troops from 48 countries, to leave by the end of the year. The NATO forces will have halved, and a full withdrawal is expected in 18 months. The historic event was marred by a large bomb exploding in the Afghan capital, however, killing 3 civilians. Police said the target of the bomb was the second vice president of the leader of the Hazara ethnic minority. Mr. Mohammed Mohakik was not injured in this explosion. Well, as we mentioned, it's the final day of the annual G8 summit. Leaders are urging the Russian president to reconsider his position on Syria. Joining me now with his take on what's been happening so far in this Syrian stalemate, if you want to call it that, is security expert Alex Holstein of geopoliticalmonitor.com. Now, Alex, we've been talking about this one a long time. Look, we heard from David Martosco last night on the Adler show, some very interesting insight. He's saying, hey, it's Hezbollah blowing up Al-Qaeda. Who cares? Let them kill each other, and we shouldn't be helping out in any way, shape, or form. Your take on this?
I agree 100%. Let them have at it, and let the chips fall where they may. There's no win here for the United States. There's less of a win here for the United States and its Western allies than there was in Vietnam. At least in Vietnam, we salvaged triangulation of Chinese Soviet-U.S. relations, which allowed Nixon to open up with China in the early 70s. That was salvaged out of the debacle that was Vietnam. But in this case, getting mired into this quagmire, eventual quagmire, would be a problem. Now, the Obama administration has made it clear that right now they're only ramping up to give a trickle of weapons to the rebels who the CIA says they can identify who the bad rebels are and the good rebels are and control that. I'm a little skeptical of their ability to do that. But at the same time, they are not engaging in a no-fly zone yet. But if they go to the point where they're pushing for a no-fly zone, it will seriously exacerbate tensions with Russia and China, who are still sore over the no-fly zone situation, what turned into a full-scale takeover of Libya. And also, no-fly zones always lead to greater conflict for us. We've seen it in Iraq, which a lot of people, the Obama administration say, oh, we rushed to war in Iraq. We're not going to rush to war in this situation. Well, no, the Iraq situation started in 1990 and was finished in 2003 as far as Saddam was concerned, and is still pretty much continuing to this day. And that we had a no-fly zone there in the mid-1990s. So, it doesn't matter how long your rush to war is, or how long it takes you to go to war. It's whether you go to war or not. If we engage in a no-fly zone, that's, I think, where we're going to end up. And
talking about Iraq, I mean, look, all of this, one war ties into the next. We had the people coming from Benghazi and that area in Libya. They were the first to go over to Iraq to fight the Americans with the Iraqis at that time. They hate Americans, all right? Then we go to help the Libyans out, and what happens there? Those weapons that were handed over by the States get shifted over to Syria. So it's not like the Americans haven't given the Syrian rebels weapons already. There's a station set up in Lebanon already, or I should say actually Jordan, not Lebanon, that they're pushing weapons over for a while already. Everybody knows that now. It's official, blah, blah, blah. So who are you arming? Is it going to be the ghost of Osama bin Laden, or is it going to be a dictator who's Assad?
Well, and we have, and Libyan arms have also floated into Mali and have caused an insurgency there, and we've seen a lot of trouble there. But I would add that, that's the one thing when you bring up proliferation of weapons, particularly weapons of mass destruction in the case of Syria, when you bring that up, that's the one thing we should be actually preventing, is we should have a CIA team and a special operations team, whether staged off the Mediterranean, Navy SEALs on a ship, or a U.S. Army Green Berets in Jordan, specifically tasked, or Delta Force, specifically tasked with stopping any proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, either to Hezbollah or any Islamist elements on the rebel side.
And let's make one thing straight here. We keep talking about how Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons, and 150 people have died from chemical weapons. Let's not forget that the United Nations, over a month ago, said that the rebels used chemical weapons. And we know that the initial chemical weapons that were used were the same same type as used in 2007 in Iraq by Al-Qaeda-linked forces there, which are more chlorine-based or whatever, but we also saw sarin now this time around from the rebel side. So those 150 dead aren't all killed by Bashar al-Assad's people.
And also it's repugnant in any case. I know that use of these kinds of weapons is particularly repugnant, but dead is dead. And, you know, does it make a difference whether he killed them with chemical weapons or he used cluster bombs or whatever? I mean, how does that affect the national interests of the United States in terms of its regional engagement? And should it get entangled in this conflict over that issue at this time? No.
And a very sad point here. I mean, I don't want to make any light of this or say that it doesn't matter that they use chemical weapons.
Right.
It's 100 to 150 people out of 95,000 that have died. I need to ask you one more question, though, before you go. Russia. Now, Russia, I think, is an important player in all of this. We have to consider the fact that Russia has a very important stake here. They have a couple of Navy bases that are in Syria. That is their out to the Mediterranean. So they have a lot to lose here.
This is their most important ally in the Middle East. Now, this is the one thing maybe we can salvage something out of our current engagement with Syria, is that President Obama could use it as a carrot and turn it around and say, well, let's say we disengage Mr. Putin. What will you give us on national missile defense in Europe? And use it as a leverage piece and then actually disengage us from Syria. That would be the smart play. Do I have faith that's going to happen? I don't know. The other thing we should do real quick, Alex, is we should wedge Hamas and Hezbollah. They're now former allies, though Sunni and Shiite had an alliance. They have a rift now over this issue. That's what the CIA should be doing regionally, is exacerbating those rifts clandestinely and covertly.
Brilliant. I love it, Alex Holstein. Okay, that was international security expert Alex Holstein of geopoliticalmonitor.com.